Man alive. I've just been talking to myself for 20 minutes with no sound. So we have to start over, guys. And yeah. So the last time we checked in, you probably heard me talking about this book called Guy's Garden, and so we're continuing with the consistent theme. Next up today, I need to come up with like an actual intro, but we have The Simple Path to Wealth, Your Map to Financial Independence and a Rich Free Life by J.L. Collins. Fantastic book. Oh man. This is a great book. Let's just do the little blurb on the author. J.L. Collins has been an investor since 1975. In 2001, he wrote a series of letters to his daughter about money and investing and what had worked and what kicked him in the ass, which is what we're going to talk about anyway, because that's more interesting. So these articles morphed into jlcollins.com with its international office and now famous stock series, which have in turn led to this book. You can read more of his story inside. Welcome and enjoy the journey. So, as the little blurb indicates, dude was an investor. J.L. Collins is an investor. Gained and lost a lot of money over the years, and eventually settled upon a strategy that he prefers, and a simple strategy that he felt like he could communicate to his daughter. So that was the device he did on his blog, was he wrote letters to his daughter explaining how to manage money, basically. And that's what this book needs to be taught in high school. This is a fantastic book. It explains all about investing. Who do you invest with? What do you invest in? And not in like theoretical terms, but like literally, here are the three major investment houses, and this one does this and this one does that, and here's the one that you really want to invest in, and here's why, and blah blah blah. And in case you don't know, there's Schwab, which is, I think, privately owned. So meaning there's ever a conflict between giving you your return in your investment or giving a return to the private owners of Schwab, well, you're going to go to the private owners of Schwab because those are the people making the decisions, right? And then there's Fidelity, which I think is publicly traded, meaning they ultimately answer to shareholders. So if there's ever profits to be divvied out and the shareholders want more profits, well, that's going to cut into the investors' profits because it's tit for tat. They're the owners. The shareholders are the owners. They're the ones that are going to get the money. And then you have Vanguard, where if you own an investment with Vanguard, you actually own part of the company. So if there's going to be a payout to the investors to the owners of Vanguard, it's going to be to the investors. So they're the one and the same. They're always aligned. So the obvious choice is Vanguard, right? Now I could have gotten Schwab or Fidelity. One of them's private, one of them's publicly traded. It could just swapped around. But Vanguard is a non-profit, and so that's what it breaks out in the book. It says this is why you should invest here versus other places. And there's probably thousands of places you could invest, and those are the three ones. So that's just one example of how it breaks things down. And then it also explains how IRAs work, how 401ks work, what they mean, how to work with them. It demystifies all this stuff. See, that's the whole thing, is the financial services industry. They don't want it to be simple. They try to make it sound complicated. They try to make it sound scary. And once you understand the basics, it's actually really simple. It takes you know, maybe 15 minutes, maybe half an hour to manage your finances every year. It's not that hard. You know, it's easier to do in taxes, managing your investments. It's easier to do in taxes if you do it the right way. And the right way is just do index funds. That way you don't have to. It's like here, this is another thing that comes from the book. I'm like, well, what should you invest in? Should you invest in a mutual fund, like an actively managed investment? Should you pick your individual stocks? I'm like, picking stocks, knowing enough to be able to pick the individual stocks is just as hard as knowing whether or not an active fund manager is good or not. Those are both equally hard problems versus just buying an index fund, which you know is just going to be is going to match the market. So you might as well just. And over the past, 30 years, something like 95% of all active funds do not beat the market. So you might as well just get an index fund with its low fees. And that's another thing. It goes into the fact that the fees are your biggest concern with any fund management, because it comes off the top. Whether the market's up or down, they always get their fee. And it's especially bad on down years because that means their fee is proportionally larger than it was the year before. It's like, so it explains everything. I'm not explaining things good here. That's why we have the book. I have bought. Here's the thing, I have bought this book. I've read this book twice. I think twice, maybe 3 times. I bought this book 4 or 5 times. So I read it originally on the blog series. So if you don't want to spend any money, Google Stock Series by J.L. Collins. It'll be the top result. And then you'll see a page. It'll have a list of a whole bunch of articles where he has step-by-step summarized what you should read and then what you should read and what you use. Basically made a book out of it. Online. There's a big post the summaries article. So that's his stock series. And you can read that all, and it takes, I don't know, take you a couple of days to get through it all. Maybe. I don't know. It didn't take me long. I don't remember it taking very long to get through it. And you can read it all online. But he did write a book. And I got the ebook version of the book and I read it. And it's edited. So it's more cohesive. The book is a little more cohesive than the stock series, but you'll do perfectly fine. The material is perfectly fine in both. I would recommend buying the book, because I want this money. I want this to become the Bible of personal finance, and them to teach this, if not in high school, then to every freshman in college. Because this is a fantastic book. It's no nonsense. He goes through, explains everything that you need to know, and it demystifies things and basically gives you the confidence to say, oh yeah, actually I don't need to be paying a dude 1% every year off of my total investments just to tell me what to do that I could do in 30 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour a day, half an hour a year. Why would I? That makes no sense. Once you understand the process, and that's what the book tells you, how to manage things simply, because you can get complicated. You make it to where you could, like, if you get a fund manager or whatever, they can make it so complicated that you couldn't take it over, right? But if you were designing a system to make it simple and easy to manage, then you wouldn't need the investment. And then of course you get that. It's like getting a free, like, whatever the fee is from your fund manager, you getting that for free returns every year because you're not having to pay that, which you are paying that, and that would be a guaranteed return versus versus the active management fund. So Yeah, it's a great book. Great book. Yeah, so I bought this multiple times. So I read it. Well, I read it online. Then I read it ebook form. Then I bought both of my sisters a copy, and then finally, because I saw he had a hardcover, I bought it in hardcover. And I've read it at least twice, and I'll read it again, just because it's good to be. It's a motivating book, too. It's not. This is not a dry read. The dude makes it fun to read. It's fun to read. It's relatively large. Let's see here. It's relatively large print. It's not a dense book. It's not a hard read. I recommend everybody that does not that struggle with personal finance to read this book. Especially if you're paying money. If you're paying people to manage your money, you should read this book. Even if I had $10 million, there's no reason for me to be paying a personal someone to manage $10 million. I'm like, maybe if I had like $500 million, that would be a different story. But if your personal finance is like all up to like, I don't know, probably up to like $20 million, there's no reason to have a personal finance manager. Like, because you're looking at a yearly returns of less than a couple $100,000 a year. It's you can manage that on your own. You're not getting into fancy taxes. The tax is actually simpler because you don't have to pay payroll taxes. You're all capital gains, or if it's all in retirement accounts, then it's all tax free. Or the tax rules are very explicit about what's coming in, and you can choose how much. So like you could choose if it's coming from like a 401k or something like that, and you withdraw. I'm like, well, if it's a standard 401k, that you pulled out $40,000, so you have taxable income of $40,000 a year. That's it. It's super. Once you understand this stuff, and again, the book explains it. It's demystified. You're not afraid of it, and I think that's the biggest thing of the book is financial service industry does not want you to understand. They want to make the calculations over retirement and managing investments and stuff like that. They want to make it sound scary and complicated, and they do. If you look at here's another thing. The front of this book, it says foreword by Mr. Money Mustache. I recently got onto this path towards finding basically this book in a thing called the FIRE movement. And that means financial independence, retire early. And so that's two different parts. There's financial independence, and then there's retirement. You can have financial independence, and then you can choose to retire early. Like they're like two different stages. You build up to financial independence, and then you can retire early. So my first introduction was this Mr. Money Mustache dude. So there was a dude called Mr. Money Mustache. He has a blog. And he had a blog called The Shockingly Simple Math Behind Early Retirement. And once I read it, I immediately saved it in my bookmarks. And it's been in my bookmarks folder, important bookmarks folder, forever now. For years and years and years now. But what it goes over is basically it says, for all of the highfalutin math and figuring out how much you need for retirement and blah, 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 and you need to account for this rate and that rate and then how long your life expectancy is and blah, blah, blah. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is your savings rate. That tells you when you retire. Your savings rate encompasses your spending, and it tells you when your savings will be large enough to cover your spending. It's super simple. You read the article. I recommend everybody read the article. That's the shockingly simple math behind early retirement. And it's rich. Just to give you an example, I think it's the standard advice is like you're supposed to save 10 or 15% for retirement. And if you do the math on that, like at standard return rates and stuff like that, you feel like you're investing money, investing 15% of your gross income to retirement, then it takes you like 40 years to retire. Just the pure math, not just based off your spending rate. So here's the thing: if you are if you're making $200 and you're spending $100 and you're saving $100, that means for every month, this is so you're making $100 a week. If every week you're making $200 and you're saving $100 and you're spending $100, your de facto spending rate is $100 per week, and your saving rate is $100 a week. So every week you are gaining a week of financial independence. I mean, you can work 1 week and then not work another week. You work 1 week, not work another week. Now that's 50% savings rate. If you do 10%, you're saving 10%. That means you got to work 10 weeks for every 1 week that you can take off. So it just becomes obvious. Like once you, once you if you read this article or whatever, it's clicking now that I'm saying this to you, you're like, that's how I felt whenever I was like, it's so obvious once you see it. You're like, of course, yeah. If I'm not spending half my income, then I'm gaining retirement as fast as I'm spending or whatever. Once you have it explained that all that matters is savings rate, then it clicks. So if you're saving 10 or 15%, it's going to take you like 35, 40 years to retire. If you are saving 50% of your income, it takes 17 years to retire. If you're saving, I think it's 65%. If you're saving 65% of your income, you'll retire in a decade or something like that. If you're saving like 75%, you retire in like 7 years or something. Because it's de facto, your savings rate tells you what your expenses are. You have demonstrated your expenses. If you're saving 50%, your expenses are 50% of your income. It's baked all in. It's super simple, but they try to make it complicated. But anyway, I don't know if that's clicking with anybody. But when I first saw it, I was like, well, of course. Like, how could I have not seen it? Once it clicked on me that that the goal absolutely should be savings rate. It doesn't matter what you retain it, like, especially if you wanted to retire early, you don't have decades to get compounding interest. If you want to retire within, a decade or two, your savings rate dominates, not the interest. You obviously want to get that interest, for the long term. You want to, have a decent return on your investments in the long term, but especially like early when you're early on your journey to financial independence, early on in your journey to retirement, savings rate dominates. And so that's what you should be doing everything you can to say well beyond the 10 or 15% that they recommend. Because they're recommending 10 or 15%. You are de facto choosing to work 35, 40 years. That's baked into the numbers. Like, that's the recommendation, is that you're going to work for 30. That's the standard advice, to work you have to work 30. No, I would rather save like hell 30, 40, 50, 60% of my income, as much as I could, early as possible, so that I have the option of either working less in the future or not working at all, you know. But you've got to get that savings. The savings rate is what matters. Anyway, that was the mind-blowing thing, the Mr. Money mustache thing. And then that's how I ended up getting... Everybody was saying, oh, you got to read J.L. Collins' stock series. Read J.L. Collins' stock series. And so I did. And then ended up with the book. So, cannot... I know I've been rambling here. And in fact, I've been rambling twice as long because the first recording attempt didn't work because I forgot to turn on the mic. But yeah, this I cannot recommend this book enough. This is everybody. This will be every teenager that I know that graduates high school will be getting a copy of this book from here until the day I die, because it's that important. And I will be bugging them about it, just like I bug my sisters about, did you read the book? And I don't know if they've read the whole book, but I keep bothering about it. Maybe maybe once a year, but they're gonna be bugged about it. But yeah, it's such an important. It's so eye opening to realize that you have power over your finances if you do them right. You have power over those finances. Like even on modest incomes, you have power over your finances. Like, if you're making $40,000 a year, some portion of that can be savings, and you can know where the finish line is, and you know what you need to do to reach the finish line even faster. It's such a great book. But that blog post, the shockingly simple math behind early retirement, and this book, cannot recommend them highly enough. All right, I have gushed on this long enough. I don't know what's going on with the camera here. You see that? Like it's overexposes me, and I have no idea why. And look, why can't it's? I got a light there. I got a light there. I got a light, 2 lights there. I don't know what to do. Like, yeah. Okay. So this is the last batch for today. So probably next time we have a book review, I'll be wearing something different. So that'll be probably a month from now. What's it? March 26th as I'm recording this, so it'll be probably more close to a month from now. We'll be going into April, or something like that. Next time you see me wearing something different, I'll just wear the same thing every day. All right. Anyway, you guys have a good day, and I'll catch you guys next time.